Hi everyone, this finally came out after like 4 years of Kickstarter slash beta slash somehow getting on GDQ as a speedrun mini thing before the game even came out.
Oh, that was because they were running an actual speedrunning event with the beta release.
Yeah.
It's not just Hat in Time. I believe people were speedrunning the Yooka-Laylee demo before that game even came out,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, but there's an actual speedrunning event that they had with the beta where they actually changed the name of beta build on your Steam list to 2017 speedrunning event. And the game actually has, functions built in for speedrunners, skip all skippable cutscenes, disable saves, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's
It's,
cool.
It's pretty neat, yeah.
Speaking of Yooka-Laylee, I like this game a lot more than Yooka-Laylee.
Well, I haven't
does-
played.
Really?
I've played Yooka-Laylee, but not this. So
Yeah, while Yooka-Laylee seems to have, graphically a better thing going for it, to put it in the words of a friend of mine, graphically this game looks like a slightly uglier version of Wind Waker, but,
Yeah, I would go more than slightly uglier. When everything's pulled back, it looks fine, but when you get into the nitty gritty and not even just from a visual perspective. This is a complaint I'll have as we go further along. But technically, this game is kind of jank, even this full release.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that to think about. But I don't want to start on a negative note. It's a really, really fun game so far, and like you said, you like it better than Yooka-Laylee. Graphically, it might not have the edge Yooka-Laylee has, but I think it makes up for it in spades with just pure level design, because the game
and the controls are more polished.
I had no problem with the way that Yooka-Laylee controlled.
Ukulele's control is fine. The problem is that the camera turns with you when you turn, and that
Oh,
causes
yeah, that was-
Yooka-Laylee to sort of slip to the side further than you
Oh, yeah.
mean to until you get used to it. So, yeah.
Hopefully that's an issue Yooka-Laylee would have fixed post camera patch, but we can talk about that game
Well,
whenever we
I
do
think
that game.
I think this game can do the same thing, but I think it's an option that you can turn off in the menu. So
I think it's kind of off by default.
I know.
Unless the camera gets like snagged on something.
I know that was something that kind of happened with N64 platformers in the past anyway, so some people might like it, I don't know, in the same way that some people actually turned on that Mega Man 9 thing for screen flicker. So, yeah.
Well, options are good, but this right off the bat, what I want to say about this game is that I was really, really wary of going back to a 3D platformer where you have that system where you collect your MacGuffin and you get booted out of the level, and every MacGuffin is its own mission. Because I didn't feel that the differences between missions and Super Mario 64 or even Super Mario Sunshine in a lot of cases were, different enough to make that kind of system work the way it should. But here, the levels can be pretty different between missions. I mean, we're seeing it here where all of the water has been turned into lava for some reason.
It's a weird.
Played this mission, so
It's a weird situation where it's either all very samey. I'm not sure if that's a tutorial thing for Mafia Town, which is the level we're in right now, because you can pretty much go wherever you want in any of the levels in Mafia Town for the most part. Whereas when you get to the second level, which is the movie studio, every level's very much its own thing.
Yeah.
You see, because in Super Mario 64, which is the example that I think is most prominent that Lewis is talking about, I think there's maybe like 1 or 2 stars in each world that need you to be on that mission in order to get it.
Not even that for most of them, unless it.
Yeah.
The only ones I can really think of are the Cuba the Quick ones.
Yeah, so in that
Yeah.
case, for Super Mario 64, there's really no reason why it shouldn't have a Banjo-Kazooie. Kinda, you can just get whatever without having to be booted back whenever you want. But then there's stuff like Galaxy and Sunshine where, since the levels do change a decent amount between star to star, then it does make sense for you to get booted back to the beginning.
And like most things with 64, I can say, first one, they're learning. So,
But it's worse.
yeah, it won't be long until we see how Odyssey handles this stuff.
Odyssey, from what we can tell,
Odyssey
you stay in the
confirms
level.
that you stay in the level.
Thank
yeah.
Christ.
Oh, you stay in a level?
Yeah.
Oh, they've gone full Banjo-Kazooie?
Yeah,
Great.
but there's
Actually,
also apparently like 60 moons in each world, so...
But we'll get to that because it's 3 weeks away.
Yeah!
Wait, moons?
Yeah, they're moons.
Yeah, you collect power moons.
Yeah, they're moons now.
That sounds so stupid.
Yeah, they're moons.
Power moons.
Yeah, power.
Please tell me that's not what they're officially called.
Yep, they're called power
Yep.
moons. They're like little cartoon crescent moons when you catch them.
They're like the 3-up moons from Mario.
They're
World.
not any stupider sounding than Shine Sprite.
Shine
Good
Sprite at
point.
least sounds good in English, okay? Power Moon is just like how to tell when a Japanese game developer doesn't know how to make something sound good in English, okay? Like
anyway,
Shine Get.
Well, trying to get had its own English charm, but back to A Hat in Time. Yes, it does put you back to the main hub world, but speaking of individual missions, I think this also has a bit of early 64 3D platform problems where a lot of the hourglasses can be beaten in like less than 2 minutes. If you just ignore everything else.
Well, that's kind of the point, though, isn't it? Like, you're supposed to...
Except there's there's not inherently much reason to
I
explore in a lot
call
of this.
that, I won't call that a problem. It's by design. There's even an achievement in the list for just ignoring Mustache Girl in the first mission and going straight for the goddamn timepiece.
Really.
So
Can I just say that the voice acting in this game is amazing?
I wouldn't say amazing. I'd say good.
Well,
but not amazing.
I really like Snatcher's voice. If you heard his voice, yeah.
Okay, so my exposure to this game is relatively limited. I've kind of... It just never... This game was never super on my radar. It was a little bit because I do love 3D platformers. But something about it just didn't really click with me. But I did watch some voice acting footage that was on YouTube pre-release. And I don't know, a lot of it didn't really click for me. Maybe it was just the one cutscene I did watch, because I watched a cutscene at the beginning of the movie studio, and it went on for like a good 10 minutes of just them talking before you could do stuff, and it felt kind of like, to me.
Wait,
I don't know.
When does that happen in this game?
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait, is that the detective thing? The Sherlock Holmes thing?
There was like two people arguing about what kind of movie the studio was going to be making.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first mission.
Yeah,
This game has a little bit of wordiness at times.
Yeah, but
Which is weird because Hat Girl is a silent protagonist.
It's weird for a game like a Banjo-Kazooie Super Mario Sunshine type game to have this much story, but there is a pretty involved plot going on with the story setup. For those who don't know, is basically just that Hat Girl's ship gets broken into by a mafia town protection racket guy, and all of her timepieces, the fuel for her ship, go flying across the planet, and you'd think it'd just be a simple-ass collectathon from there, but no, you meet the Mustache Girl the moment you touch down, and like the first 3 missions of the game are just setting up this friendship-turned-enemy relationship between the Hat Girl and the Mustache Girl.
I thought that was pretty funny.
It's hilarious. It's great. I love that.
Another positive I agree is that this game does have very good humor.
Yeah.
Like one of the missions you saw on the main menu, I can't get to because I don't have the right ability. Now it's a race, I guess, and it says time to win this race fair. And yeah, right.
But you know what I like about it? Without getting too involved, the Mustache Girl, who I presume is the main villain of the game, her motivation isn't I'm gonna collect these power stars and take over the world or kidnap the princess or anything. It's I want to use the power of time travel to fight evil. I don't feel like the good guy here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the point.
And it works. It really does. I appreciate that aspect of the game, and it's not something that I was expecting from my experience with the beta.
I love the mission with that particular mafia guy, where like you splash in mud and then you scare him, and he thinks you're an alien.
That was great.
So, question. The little floaty orbs, are those necessary to pick up for 100%?
You mean
no, they're gems. Those are just money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're money. You use them to unlock pedestals in the hub to assemble your relics. You use them to buy items in the levels, and you use them to unlock missions at times. Basically, collect as many of them as you can. Although, I suggest you complete the first 3 or 4 missions of Mafia Town before you collect too many of them, because Mustache Girl pickpockets half your shit.
Yeah,
what?
That happened to me.
What? Oh, 1,000-year... She 1,000-year doors you, damn.
The moment the meter goes from friends to enemies, she pickpockets half your palms.
Welcome back, lassie.
I like the noir kind of filter over this level.
Yeah.
Well, you're in a movie, so.
There's one level in this world I don't really like, and that's when you're marching and all those birds have to follow you, and they can attack you, and then every time there's a cutscene, you can sometimes get attacked by fireworks the moment the cutscene ends. It was just poorly designed.
Unfortunately, I can't really speak of anything past Mafia Town because, well...
Also, do these crows remind anyone else of Spy versus Spy guys?
Oh, they do. Yeah.
Oh God,
definitely.
I thought I was the only one who remembered that. Yeah. I used to have a subscription to Mad Magazine. It's something my dad got me for some reason. But yeah, I remember Spy versus Spy, and these gave me real Spy versus Spy vibes. But what I was gonna say is I haven't played anything past Mafia Town. I've gotten like 7 timepieces so far in one sitting. I'm working 50-hour weeks during the peak season, so I haven't had time for more than one play session since this game came out. It came out right before one of my shifts too. I was so salty, but it was great when I was playing it. So I'm looking forward to playing more.
Control-wise, it plays just fine. I just think like. Moving around within it can sometimes get a bit janky. Like I've bumped into stuff that doesn't exist. I've tried to do the wall cling slide, and I've kind of floated in front of the wall by about 3 feet.
You say that, but I haven't run into any problem except that the homing attack sometimes doesn't seem to want to work. That's the only technical issue that I've had. It might be that my hardware is just better, and sometimes the game hiccups for you that. For me.
I'm not entirely sure, but I've run into some not major but pretty common technical problems. They don't really appear.
What kind of rig are you working with?
Desktop PC.
No, I mean, what kind of hardware?
I'd have to look it up.
He's running.
It's an internet captcha.
He's running
a CPU and a.
He's running a Commodore. He's running a Commodore 64. Like a whole 2 gigabytes, a whole 2 kilobytes of RAM.
And yet it can still play Doom.
Everything plays Doom.
Yeah, it's 1 frame per second, and the picture is just one giant pixel, but it works. You can play it.
Like I said, the only issue I've had is that one level I just talked about.
Okay, the environmental. I'm liking the environmental jokes an awful lot more than the dialogue as of right now, because I saw the back of the picture where it has the terms and conditions on it.
Yeah, the crow mentions that when you solve the captcha, you agree to the terms and conditions.
Yeah, so a lot of there's a lot of attention to detail put into the environments. I'm appreciating that a lot more than
like you see there, I kind of skid above
now.
the book. I like you saw there, I kind of skid above the bookshelf.
Yeah.
The
voice
wall.
dialogue is passable. Like, the voice actors aren't bad, but they aren't particularly good. They're just goofy enough to hold your attention, and that's about it. I swear Mustache Girl is voiced by the same kind of average-level voice actor as Tracer from Overwatch.
Although, if you listen to Snatcher's voice, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I love his voice so much. It is fantastic. I think a YouTuber named Youngtown did his voice.
Okay, you missed a trick there by not using the number 9. But, speaking of Mighty Number 9, the Family Dollar around the corner from my house is selling a copy of it.
To be fair, Lewis, this was the first time I was playing this mission, so I didn't know he was going to say Mighty something. I'm sure someone will make that joke in a playthrough, but...
But zooming out from any specific level, though, how many levels are there? How many worlds, rather?
There are 4.
There's 4.
With the promise of at least one coming out as free DLC for a stretch goal.
I think so, yeah.
And yet, with just the 4 worlds, it doesn't really feel like the game is lacking in the variety at all. I mean,
it's a
for this kind
bit...
of game, you expect it to be a bit short, but...
how many collectibles are there, hourglasses?
There are 40.
40 hourglasses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so 100%ing this game is only 1/3 of 100%ing Mario 64.
Oh, well, it's just I'm comparing, again, the common comparison right now that we've been making is Yooka-Laylee. That has something like 200 things. So
yeah.
pages.
Well, that's there's 40 hourglasses, which is what you need to complete the game. There's also ink. I mean, not ink. Why am I saying ink? Ribbons. I got my Resident Evil wires crossed there. Ribbon. Yarn. There's yarn all over the place, and you need to collect as much of that shit as you can in order to create hats, which is how you get new moves.
Okay.
And
yes and no. Ultimately, the amount of yarn doesn't matter too much because you need to find one of the kind of yarn to make the hat in the first place.
Yeah, and then you need to find as much extra yarn as you can in order to have enough to make that.
Which I feel is a bit of a weird design choice, because ultimately a lot of the yarn you're going to be picking up is kind of useless then.
Could you grind it by going back to an old level, or will it not reappear?
No. Each instance of yarn within a level is one piece of yarn that you can't grab the same. You can't grab the same yarn twice. So you need to find it hidden around the levels, and you don't necessarily need to find all of it. But when you're playing through the game blind, which is the way you should judge a game when you're judging length for how it's going to affect your purchase worth. When you're playing through the game blind, you're going to want to grab as much of that yarn as you can, because you don't know how much you'll need for each hat. You don't know how many hats there are to make in the first place.
Wow, this game is such a Super Mario Odyssey ripoff with changing hats. Jesus Christ.
I mean, from what I'm hearing, the game's average length is about 13 hours.
Now, I would say that changing hats was Hat in Time's idea first, but in the early, the beta version, it was just hat badges. The actual changing of hats, I don't know how early in development that concept was included, but it wasn't in the beta. And the sprint ability, the umbrella ability, those kind of things, they were all badges that you pinned.
Well, the umbrella ability is a badge.
Yeah. The umbrella ability was also a hover that you could use at will, though, in the beta, which is odd. They changed it to a passive that activates just to break fall damage. I'm not really super upset with that change because, well, you get so much airborne mobility that a dinky little hover doesn't really seem all that exciting anymore,
Yeah.
You can double jump and you can dive.
One other thing I would say, the hats, except for the Brew one, which lets you destroy objects, all the ones I've found so far have been very situational, or in the case of the dash one, pretty much not useful at all. It's a bit weird.
Well, it depends on your playstyle to a certain point.
Well, no, the dash, you can keep more control and go faster just by doing the dive and then reset with the jump button.
Well, really?
Yeah.
That kind of movement in video games is always so erratic, though, and I never have fun doing it.
Did you upgrade your sprint hat to use the scooter?
I don't think I've gotten that far yet.
The other thing about the hat system, though, now that they've changed it from badges, is that in the beta you had to constantly go into the menu and re-equip your badges if you wanted to change abilities. Whereas there's a weapon wheel for your hats. There's a weapon wheel for hats. I repeat that. It is not a joke. There is a Doom 2016 style weapon wheel for your hats, so you can change them on the fly, and it makes the ability system pretty useful in this game. And your base hat just gives you the ability to tell where the next timepiece is, but then you get stuff like the sprint hat, the hat that lets you throw exploding potions, and whatever else happens after Mafia Town. I don't know what else is in this game.
You get a ground stomp badge, which isn't terribly useful.
Yeah. I haven't found anything that I would want a ground stomp, to be honest.
I'm sure you've seen those little blue platforms with the ice symbol on it.
Yeah, that's what you use.
And they just launch you.
Oh, they're springboards. Huh.
Yeah, so
Okay.
not terribly useful.
A bit situational, but it's less of a problem when the hats are situational if you can switch between them quickly, because if they're situational and you wind up having to constantly go into a menu to switch them, it just feels like busy work.
How many are there in the game is the thing, because if there's a lot of them, then obviously a couple are going to be pretty situational. That's just how games like these tend to roll.
Well, I know that there aren't as many hats as there are hat skins.
There.
One of the rewards that you can get for doing the Time Rift platforming challenges and stuff is different versions of each hat that look different. So
you can also unlock different colors and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also official mods. There's like a lilac hat, and then there's also a Purin hat from Gurumin.
How do you get the lilac hat?
I don't know how to get either of them. I just know that they exist. The Purin and lilac hats.
Yeah, because you said the lilac hat gives you Lilac's Cyclone.
Yeah, and I don't know what the Purin hat does though.
Yeah.
I was
lilac hat. That sounds. So fun.
I was surprised to see that there's a Gurumin hat in here, but
something about having that ability from Freedom Planet in a 3D platformer sounds amazingly broken, though.
Well,
that may be the case.
You basically did have that ability in Sonic 06 while playing as Blaze the Cat, which was kind of ironic when I think about it. But
Well, it was the best way to kill enemies with her. At least grounded ones, anyway.
it also made her the only fun character to play as in the game.
You know, it's very weird looking at the level design between this stage and the first one, because the first one was very busy. A big complaint about a lot of these old collectathon-styled games on the N64 and PlayStation was that there was a lot of empty space, and it feels like the first level was trying very hard not to do that by putting everything really close together. And this one's a lot more, feels a lot more empty by comparison.
It's more empty, but also more straightforward and structured.
Yeah, because it's
yeah,
a
Ted. There's quite a bit of stealth missions in this game.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird for an adventure platformer sort of thing.
The one I didn't like is the one in the third chapter where you have to sneak around this mansion, and there's this crazy lady chasing you all over the place, and you have to like hide under the furniture, and if she catches you, it's like you die like instantly. I did not like that mission. It was scary.
Also, the stealth can be very weird. Sometimes you can just walk right past the lighted area that says you've been caught, and it'll do the red exclamation point saying you got caught. You have a little bit of leeway, but you'll be fine. And other times it'll just snap you off instantly and say, "Oh, you've been caught."
It's funny how right here you have to wait for all the crows to laugh.
They're supposed to be solving a crime. Are they just sitting in the dining hall laughing at things?
Is the time determined by your progress in the?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not actually timed. That's good.
No.
Just like how
Is that
actual.
That a Metal Gear Solid logo?
It's definitely made to look like a Metal Gear Solid logo.
Also, with this mission, you can just choose whoever you want to be the killer, and that'll work.
Well, it's a movie, so it doesn't really matter.
No, but just saying you could.
Is there a correct answer that gets you better rewards?
Nope.
Huh.
You can even pick yourself.
Yes, you can.
What?
It was me! I was the turkey all along!
That's like when you play Clue and you find out you're playing as Mrs. White and you find out, oh, Mrs. White was the killer the entire time. Who? So wouldn't I win if I said somebody else was the killer then, in that instance? I mean, I'm not the one going to jail.
You can't prove anything, coppers. Well, I say I did it.
Yeah, but you know, I haven't extensely played Yooka-Laylee yet. I haven't had a chance.
I've 100% of the game.
It didn't. I should say in a past tense. I should say it didn't work on my computer before I upgraded my CPU, and I haven't tried it since the upgrade. So I'm not sure. But from what I've seen of the game, the design mentality there seems to be every level as large, expansive, and open as possible. Whereas here,
this
not
is
every
much,
level actually.
This is much more compact. From what I'm seeing right now,
almost.
this is much more compact than. I liked Yooka-Laylee. I know it's a very hit or miss game. I know people either tend to love it or hate it.
Compact is the thing. Like, I think I like the level design mentality on display here more, because while it's not as impressively huge, the emphasis isn't so much on the expansiveness, it's on putting as much interesting gameplay into a smaller space as possible, you know, making use of those system resources to make that standard size open platforming level a bit more.
I'm
yeah,
not
I'm with
entirely.
you there, Ted.
I see what you're talking about, Ryan. There, where you should have gotten caught there and you didn't.
I think there was a timer going down.
Yeah.
Where
There was, but normally if you hit red, then it's an instant gets sent back to the start of the room. But as far as the kind of the Yooka-Laylee versus Hat in Time thing we were going on, I'm a little bit more on the Yooka-Laylee side right now. I feel that game has a bit better idea of what it wants to do as an exploration kind of 3D collectathon platformer. I feel A Hat in Time, while good control and has good ideas, is a little less solid on the new design front on what it kind of wants to do.
it's a little unfocused, you mean?
Yeah.
See, the thing about Yooka-Laylee, I liked that game, but I understand why people don't, because ultimately it is basically just a modern version of the 64-bit Banjo-Kazooie games, and you know,
not saying
people remember really liking those games, and they were revolutionary for their time. But then again, like, they are still very much like 1998 platformers, and we've come a long way since then. And they do try to modernize in some aspects, but it's still very close to that.
Well,
this seems to be trying. Oh God! Oh no!
Well, you know what? This is a good segue into what I was going to say. There's a bit of a plus and minus on both games counts, but I think one of the plus points for A Hat in Time that will probably make people like it, even if they didn't like Yooka-Laylee so much, is that, unfocused or not, there's a lot more originality on display here.
Oh no, agreed there.
You know what? Yeah, I'll agree with that. Not that Yooka-Laylee's creatively bankrupt, but this is definitely more bizarre. I'll put it that way.
It's like Yooka-Laylee was transparently trying to be Banjo-Kazooie, except not with Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
Even the goddamn title logo is
that was on.
Yeah,
it was
and they even just completely ripped off the DK wrap in everything but name only.
Yeah, no, but that was on purpose though.
And you know that's cool. It's cool in its own way, but not everyone is going to respond to that as positively.
Yeah, because not everybody who likes 3D platformers likes Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah,
It's
kind of like at the risk of opening a can of worms here, it's kind of like you with Sonic Mania, where, you know, some people are just going to like the kind of approach A Hat in Time takes more.
Yeah, and you know, just on that point, after playing Sonic Mania, I went and played Freedom Planet for the first time, and I liked that a hell of a lot better. So
yeah.
What
that's
caught
kind
you
of
there?
That's almost
one of the pros.
That's kind of the sort of thing that I'm thinking of. I think there's going to be people who respond to A Hat in Time better, and you know, for the purposes of informative review speak, you know, that's important to bring up. If you didn't like Yooka-Laylee because you felt it was too close to Banjo-Kazooie for its own good, give A Hat in Time a chance. There's a good chance that it's got what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I should say I do appreciate these kinds of games a lot, especially in the indie scene, because it does feel like a lot of the times when there's we've got things like Bloodstained, which is a new Castlevania, quotation marks, but sometimes you want a game of that style that isn't Castlevania, you know, you want something completely different. And for the 3D platformer, collectathon, whatever the hell you want to call this genre, because I don't think we really have a good name for it yet, and it's been almost 20 years.
Collectathons are about the only thing. Collectathons are like the only term we really have.
Yeah, but people use it in such a negative context that I don't like calling the entire genre that, you know? Because it feels like the only reason why you play it is to see numbers go up, and that's not really the case. So
yeah, and I agree. It's not the best term. It's just the only one we have because looking at Mario Odyssey, it looks very different than what you're doing in DK64, which is literally the collectathon to end all collectathons.
But one thing that on the subject of not doing whatever, not being too much like Banjo-Kazooie, one of the things that I liked about A Hat in Time from concept alone, like from the earliest days, is the fact that you're playing as a human character, which is kind of not all that common in the platformer genre, unless it's something like Tomb Raider or Prince of Persia, which is a completely different kind of platformer.
In this kind of platformer, I can't think of one. Probably
apart from Mario.
Apart from Mario, or there's probably plenty
40
of
Winks.
There's probably
40
plenty of
Winks
terrible.
on the PlayStation 1 is the only other one I can think of off the top of my head.
There's probably some cartoon-based games that use this style. Like I wouldn't be
Rascal.
surprised.
Oh God, I wish I hadn't thought of that one. Rascal is another one.
Yeah, there's probably like a Fairly Odd Parents 2D platformer. Oh, you're making me the murderer. Oh.
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Ted did it. Ted's the murderer all along.
I didn't want to have to do this, but now you know I'm not going to let you leave this commentary alive, see?
I guess if you really want to reach for it, Toy Story 2 on PlayStation 2 is another one you could go for, but you're playing as a Buzz Lightyear action figure, not so much a human in that one. So, same kind of thing, though.
It's not actually Miss Ted.
Huh.
Yeah, you can choose literally anyone you find a suspect list for, so it doesn't really matter.
Wait, did the victim? What?
Yeah, the victim just got up.
What? Okay.
The knife is also clearly just floating through his model. Yeah, the knife graphic just isn't moving with the owl's idle animation. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, they probably just had that
that's partially
floating.
Yeah, that's partially what I mean by this game technically is still a bit jank.
I can understand that. Like, the models are smooth. It's not that they're like they're.
It looks fine enough. It looks fine enough.
I will say that it looks pretty damn slick on its highest settings, which thankfully I have enough hardware specs to actually enjoy now that I've upgraded my CPU. But at mid-range settings, the kind of settings that most people are probably going to be playing this game on, it's a little bit average looking. Like, it's a bit simplistic. You can definitely tell it was a budget-priced indie game.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. How expensive is it at the moment?
I believe it's 20.
I think $30, $20 to $30.
Something in that range, yeah.
So,
which for a game of this length isn't bad, but
not bad. But it's also one of those. It's not the best example of this type of game I would ever give. So if this isn't your thing to begin with, that's a bit pricey, I feel.
Maybe. I don't know. I would argue that, it makes a decent enough starting point for this kind of genre.
I think people are used to indie games being less expensive than $20 is the thing. Like, I remember I would say
$20 is kind of the upper range for most indie titles.
Like, I remember, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse was $20, wasn't it? And I remember people getting a stink about that.
We don't necessarily put them at that price point because they're indie titles. We put them at that price point because they're usually pretty goddamn small and less graphically intensive and stuff like that.
There's no good. It's one of those things where people, regardless of the quality of the game, so I'm not saying this is a good thing. Regardless of the quality of the game, when people hear indie, they expect it to be cheaper, So
they expect it to be cheaper and smaller, and A Hat in Time is unique in the respect that it's quite large, and graphically it's not like AAA, but it's impressive.
For an indie title.
Very impressive for an indie title, but also fairly impressive on its own merits too. So it's difficult to talk about price comparing it to other indie games. It's in its own little niche as far as as far as value packages go.
The big thing is that, again, we compare it to Yooka-Laylee so much because they're at this point the only indie 3D platformers or 3D collectathons, I guess, that I can really name off the top of my head. It's not. There aren't a lot of games.
I don't think there's any others.
Any others that are attracting the same amount of attention. At any rate, and so most of the time when people are talking about indie games, it's either like some kind of puzzle thing or a 2D platformer of some kind or something like that. So there's no real frame of reference for how much this is. Like, I remember Yooka-Laylee's $40, and I remember when we were talking about that during the Platformania charity stream, like, people were being like, wow, that's like way overpriced. And I'm like, no, not really. It's a solid 20-hour game. If you like it, that's plenty of game for your buck.
I also think that's a matter of pedigree.
Yeah, as well.
Because when you're going into Yooka-Laylee, you know, like, most of the staff is former Rare employees, so they can sort of command that price compared to.
The only thing
this started with one guy making the game, I think.
Yeah.
The only thing about Yooka-Laylee that makes me raise an eyebrow at that kind of price point is, ironically, the user interface and text, which look really on the cheap because they're going for that old school Banjo-Kazooie feeling.
You know,
everything else in the game is pretty much AAA.
You know, I agree with you because, like, I don't mind the gibberish voices. I like them, but the font looks worse than on the N64 to me for some reason.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's it's like one of those things that you feel bad about complaining about. But
at a lower resolution, simpler fonts look better.
Yeah.
At a higher resolution, simpler fonts look budget priced, and at that point, you just want the text boxes to look nicer. God damn it! I'm looking at you, Square. Stop replacing all the good fonts in your PS4 in your PlayStation 1 game ports with stupid mobile phone fonts. It's ugly.
One of the reasons why there are two big reasons why I have a hard time playing the Ace Attorney games on the downloaded version on 3DS. One is the sprites, but the other is the font. I hate the new font that they use for those games. It drives me up the wall. And in a game where you spend the entire time reading, that I do feel like that's actually something worth complaining about.
It really is something to keep in mind when you're doing that much reading. Oh, Wipeout. And this is one of the Super Mario Sunshine platforming challenges, which, I say Super Mario Sunshine platforming challenges, but they're quite a lot more involved than the ones in Super Mario Sunshine.
I think you're a bit ahead.
I really like these.
Yeah, I think you're a bit ahead.
Yeah, we're at like 36, 7.
Huh. I think my video skipped forward a few minutes.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, well...
Odd.
Yeah. No, don't worry. It's just don't worry. It's not a bug. It's a throwback to retro BrainScratch comms. Yeah. That's
support a Kickstarter to bring back old BSC.
Yeah. We'll use Skype Recorder instead of Audacity to keep it authentic.
Ugh.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, now that I'm watching more of it, I do think that this game does, like, I wasn't sold on the charm at first, but having watched a decent amount of gameplay, this game is pretty damn charming. So...
Charming is one of its greatest strengths. And,
Yeah,
they were selling it on that, like, hardcore during the lead up to launch.
Yeah.
Talking about how cute it was and you could smooch birds.
Yeah, but, like, being ranked like Max Diva is, like, that's cute. So...
Yeah, Hat Kid is a really cute protagonist.
Wait, so does your score in these levels determine which one wins?
Oh, yeah, and
Yes.
And that also determines which one of them you fight for the boss fight.
Oh,
Basically,
that's interesting.
Yeah, basically whoever wins, that's who you fight.
Is there gameplay variety between them?
There's dialogue variety.
Is it the
Yeah,
same?
gameplay-wise, they're the
itself
same.
is the same? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time rift detected. These are your go play a Sunshine level things.
Yeah, well, some of them are. Others are a bit weird, like that.
The purple ones you get are for completing the relic puzzles.
Yeah. Completing the relic puzzles unlocks time rifts that have a different kind of system going on, but the ones that you find in the levels are there's Super Mario Sunshine puzzles,
And like not even trying to hide those vendor Sunshine platform
yeah.
levels.
The first one has that rotating long
Block
platform,
thing.
right? Like straight out. In the beta, it was even more obvious because the color scheme was more or less the same as it used to be in Super Mario Sunshine. They changed it to look more original in the final release, but that platform is still in there.
Is that the one that they brought back for Galaxy 2 that you're talking
Yes,
about?
the rotating blocks
exactly
with the other
one.
blocks sticking out of it.
But I'll give it a pass simply because the platforming design in these challenges is so well done that, you know, I look forward to them every time I run into them. I mean, in Super Mario Sunshine, I looked forward to them because they were platforming challenges in a game that I felt was sorely lacking platforming challenges. But
yeah, I'm more of a platformer myself, so I enjoyed these a lot more than just not so much just wandering around. I'm more of a platformer person than explore and talk to these people, solve their problems, sort of thing.
But you know, this game already has its platforming challenge balance pretty well down. So when I find the time rifts, I'm looking forward to them less because I want to platform, and more because I know they're going to be really fun platforming.
Did you play Yooka-Laylee, Ryan, or did you skip it?
I played it.
Okay, because like that game has a lot more platforming in it than Banjo-Kazooie, so I was actually...
Yes, it did.
So do you like it better than Banjo-Kazooie because of that? Because I know that's more your...
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I recognize Banjo-Kazooie is probably an overall better put-together game than Yooka-Laylee.
Oh, yeah, probably.
In terms of what you do, but as just more of a platformer person, that's more what I look forward to, which is ultimately why I just can't get into, say, Banjo-Kazooie as much as you can.
Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. Tetris might be arguably the best puzzle game ever made, and, like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of a mediocre game off the top of my head. Castlevania 64 might not be a great adventure game, but if you like adventure games more than puzzle games, you might like Castlevania 64 more than Tetris, and that's just the element of taste that's in play there.
I'll actually say that as jank as it is, Castlevania 64 isn't as bad as people say it is.
I was just trying to think of a mediocre game off the top of my head, which was harder to do than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not a game I would recommend, but you know, it's got its merits. It's just a victim of being a really experimental 3D game from a really experimental time in 3D game design.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I recorded for this video. Went a bit longer than I thought, mostly because of the train level.
Well, it was good to get a good example of the game's dialogue, so I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a...
Ultimate... Yeah, what? This is what you get a roulette to choose a bonus after you complete a Rift level.
Oh, so if you don't like it, you get... Oh, okay, it's one of those kinds of things. All right. I thought that you were going to, like, line up your bonus or something like that.
No.
But, okay.
No. Just a bit of a closing thoughts for the three of us who have played it. I generally enjoy this game. I feel it's a little pricey, especially if it's not your thing. But if you're looking for a 3D platformer, unfortunately, it's had a bit of bad timing because Odyssey comes out in a few weeks.
Yeah. Just to get my thought in quick first, because I haven't played it. I'm interested in it, but I'm going to be that guy, and I'm going to say, I'm going to wait for the Switch version, mostly just because
There's not going to be a Switch version,
as
far as we know. There's a PS4 and Xbox One version, but...
I don't know.
Nintendo didn't give them the dev kit, so there's no plans for a Switch version right now.
That sucks. In that case, I'll probably wait for a Steam sale then, because I'm actually much more interested in it now, having watched a decent bit of footage.
I would wait. I would wait for a Steam sale then for this game. Ultimately, I feel it's a little pricey for its own good.
I feel the price is just right, honestly.
Just on a technical kind of jank
same
level,
here.
but,
honestly, I agree with you, Lewis.
I mean, to each our own. That's why we have our own opinions.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a you know, it's a tastes thing, obviously, and you should make your own decisions for yourself. But I want it on record that I think it's worth the price of admission at full price, straight from the off. So that's just my recommendation, though.
Okay, so since you two don't agree, and this is way too civil, I'm going to put you into a gladiators coliseum, and you'll fight to the death. Go.
I won handedly. I'm sure this is a game we'll get to at some point.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll almost certainly do a full playthrough at some stage.
Yeah. But unfortunately for it, and like a certain blue head chart that comes out a little bit after, Mario's right around the corner, so...
That's stupid fat bastard ruining all these other perfectly fine... okay, maybe not for Forces, but ruining this perfectly fine game's chance to shine. Stupid fat Italian.
I don't think so. I think I think the timing of a Hat in Time's release is really good, actually, because you got a full month or more until Super Mario Odyssey comes out, and some people haven't been able, like me, haven't been able to buy a Switch yet. So, the lead into Super Mario Odyssey might put people in the mood for an open world collectathon platformer, and here's a hat in time, right in time.
Well, it's just one of those things. Again, we were talking about the price. It's almost half the price of Mario Odyssey, so I can imagine also a decent amount of people saying that they'll skip this to save money for that Switch or their copy. So.
Yeah, maybe, but a lot of people also did pre-order the game. So
again, that is true. People
we shall see. For now, Hat Girl goes off to the rest of, I guess, halfway through the adventure because I'm halfway done.
All right.